You're listening to the Every Day is a New Day show. Inspirational conversations with movers and shakers about moving forward and choosing to embrace a positive outlook. Now, here's your host, Kim O'Neill.
Welcome. My name's Kim O'Neill, and I'm a twice certified transformational coach, Reiki master, best-selling author, podcast host, former crime analyst, and big believer in learning from everything so you can confidently move forward in life. You can join us for the live shows most Wednesdays on Facebook at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And now, here's today's newest awesome guest. With that said, I'm really excited to bring to you today's guest. Oh my goodness, when you hear about this person, I'm going to go ahead and welcome him to the show. Welcome, Mark Green.
Thank you, Kim. So I spent the day down in Tampa cutting grass because I was in India for an extended period of time and it rained a lot. So when I got down there, I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a challenge because I have a push mower. It still has the little thing that makes you go, but it was a challenge to cut the grass. So got it done. A little bit of sweating, a little bit of humidity because I live in Orlando, Florida. But, got back. My son bought a car tonight with my family. We got all that taken care of. So I'm just happy to be here. And like you said, one day at a time, because really that's what it's all about, family and the things that we do. I'm just blessed to be in the position I am with what I do. And I love what I do. So I'm just happy to be here for sure.
I am so happy to have you here. And the reason, I just have to say this, the reason why I was like, when you said that you had a push mower, I somehow was imagining like one of those manual, like a non-motorized push motor. So I presume yours had a motor, correct?
Yeah. Yes,
okay. Yeah. That's good. Okay.
A total. So.
Well, and I haven't mowed grass myself in such a long time, but I know that when it rains a lot and you've got the heat, and I know Florida has a lot of heat, it grows fast. So I bet you have a lot.
It really does.
Wow. Okay. So, okay.
So going to India was just my last trip, and that was incredibly amazing. I got to speak right underneath of a presidential candidate that's running for 2020. I spent 10 days looking at the water situation in India, which is very, very difficult right now because their water shores were way down and the monsoon season was not running like it should. I got to see the country. I got to visit some of the ministry and some of the universities there, and we're doing a project that's called Seeds of Hope, which is a project for the people that are in poverty, but they're actually making these beautiful beaded and seeded necklaces, and so we're going to work with them. And it's a gypsy group that lives there, and they're going to provide those, and we're going to create a campaign around that to build hope and purpose, to give them something to do, and in turn, then we help them with the food and some of the other things. So one of the projects, sometimes we don't know, like when you say every day is a new day, I had no idea that my life would start moving in that direction because I've been an author and a speaker. And
you know what? And Mark, I'm going to go ahead, and what I love to do is I want to just read your bio to our audience. Sure. They have a little bit of your background in a nutshell, because you're sharing so many awesome next things that are happening, and I love it. So for those who are just meeting Mark Green for the very first time, here is his background in a nutshell. So Mark Green is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and former Inspector General who now devotes all his time providing consulting services for transitioning from the military to civilian life, helping others build resilience in every area of themselves. Despite growing up in poverty, he also holds a Doctorate of Law and a master's degree in organizational management and communications. He's also the author of 2 books, as he started to mention, and he just completed, literally last week, hosting the largest ever online resilience summit. And as you just heard, he's like already doing other things internationally. So, okay, please continue and tell us.
I was like, who is that guy? It's like, there was another guy that went through all this adversity first in life that built the character. But I realized too that on the 10th day, I was honored to be given a certificate from the International Peace Summit, and it was they made me a world ambassador to civility. And I I was on the plane coming home, and I'm like, these things don't just happen. You have to put yourself in that situation over time that you become what you want to be. But sometimes there's those shifts or those paradigms that we didn't expect. And so now I have to embrace this whole new idea of possibly being a statesman on a global level. And what's interesting is when I was in San Diego a couple of years ago, I had kind of boxed myself in, and I thought, well, maybe I'm only going to be helping military families and others with resilience. And now I realize that I had said I want to be connected with like-minded souls at a global level. Well, when I put that in a publication a year ago, I had no idea that it would bring me to what I'm doing now. And so it's so incredible when you write something down and you just keep going. You're persistent, you're patient. You don't always push, but you wait for things to come to you, and they just do. And it's incredible how that is working out for me. I've only been out of the service for 2 years.
Wow.
Actually less than 2 years. And so there's some things that I like to share that people should do. When you're out of high school or you're grown up, I always say stay in school. I don't know, it doesn't have to be a university or whatever, but always learn something new, because when you're learning something new, especially about something you're passionate about, that's so important. Another thing is pick a sport, any kind of sport, but do something to get out and get exercise, because exercise is so incredibly important to what we do. And you know what?
Let's expand on that. Why do you believe exercise is so important to what we do?
Well, for one, it cleanses the body of all your toxins, that you sweat, and then you cool down and you stretch your muscles, and your body needs that. Your body needs to do that. It needs that time to recharge. After you sleep, you need to do something. Even if it's 20 minutes, just get the heart rate up a little bit. Being in the Army, we had to do it all the time. So it was like, but now I have to force myself to get up and go do what I got to do with the exercise. But I also say there's 5 things that you should do every day.
Okay.
One of them is, the first thing is be grateful, because when you're grateful every day, it creates something new in the brain. And I do that every day. I get up, and the first thing I do is I do my gratefulness exercise. And then I have my affirmations on my mirror, and I read them out. It's like, okay, and then I vision how they look, and then I feel myself in the emotion of what it felt like to get there. And so it actually locks it in. And then I read, I meditate, and then I exercise. And that's the top 5. So those are things that I would like to impart on everyone, that find that routine even in the morning or also at night, right before you go to bed, that works for you, because everybody's different. And my meditation coach one time told me, she goes, Mark, you can meditate 5 times a day. I said, how? She goes, take 2 deep breaths, and that will change you from fight or flight into rest and right digestion. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And you know what? When I need to be centered, I'll stop, take a deep breath, and then everything's good. And it's just incredible how that works so well.
Yeah. I thank you for sharing those so early on. I absolutely love that. And for anybody who's wondering, how long does it take you to go through those 5 things?
Usually about an hour. The exercise might be a little longer on the other end, but it depends if I'm walking my dog or if I'm choosing exercise on my own, because I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, so I'll do my forms and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And so it depends on the amount of time that I choose to use. Sometimes if I'm traveling, I won't always do it when I'm traveling. I try to, but I don't always, depending on the timing and everything, or if I'm jet lagged. But it is really, really important.
What dreams did you have when you were a kid growing up? Like, did you ever see yourself reaching the level that you did within the Army, or do anything different?
It's interesting you say that, because I don't know if the picture is close. It's not, but there's a picture of me and my sister when I was 3 years old, standing on the porch of that little house we rented in Arnold, Missouri. And me and my sister have my dad's Army hats on. She has the steel pot on, and I have the officer's cap. And he was an officer in the Army. And I would watch the convoys go by, and for some reason, I always knew I would be in the Army. I just
Okay.
knew it. It's like that was that childhood thing that locked in that said, I want to be a soldier, man, right? And so from 21 until I just retired, I never had a break in service. That's what I did my entire life. And, and sometimes it was reserve time. So I still worked and I did other things. I did other professions to learn, and I went to school. But that was one of my dreams, to become a soldier. And I did it. And, and I didn't grow up in the best of families. I don't mean like the best of families. The family was fine, but we had a lot of adversity. We had, like my dad left, and, we lived on welfare. We didn't have a lot. And because of that, there was a point in my life where I got really angry at the world, and I wanted to lash out, and my behaviors was not within what most people would be acceptable left and right limit. And I had to rescript. And, I didn't graduate from high school at first. And then now I have a law degree. There's things that I had to go through to change in my life to be who I am now.
Let's really look at that rescript part. I love that you actually used that word. You said you came to a point where you had to rescript. Was that a conscious rescripting, or is that how you have looked at it and reframed it for where you are today?
Well, I think it was multi, because one of the things was I realized at some point that if I was to continue down the road I was going, it was not going to come out good. And that was a decision I had to make. I said, no, not me. I'm going to change my life. I want more out of life than the things that are happening. And then secondly, I think the rescripting came from education, military education, as well as civilian education. And then, a couple of years ago back, I found the heart. I'm like, oh, you mean there's another part here? And, like I was all bottled up with my uniform and my, this persona, and, nobody could come in my bubble. And I had this authority as an inspector general, and I had a high level, lieutenant colonel. I was a colonel in the Army. So you had this bubble around you, and I wasn't willing to let people in. Well, I mean, I didn't really have to on the professional side. But I think on the personal side, once you find your heart and your passion too, all the rest of that really, I have my love me wall behind me and all that, but all that other stuff really doesn't seem to matter as much when you can connect with people. And I think that's the thing that has changed everything for me, is that ability to connect to the heart. And so sometimes I pull back because, like I'll probably put it out there too far. But I also realize that, and maybe that's why a couple of times in my book I share, that I had a couple of failed relationships. Well, I understand why now, because I wasn't working through. First of all, I didn't have the faith, and I didn't have the heart I should have to be in that relationship at the time. I was not mature the way I should have been, and so I own that, and I always take responsibility. And that is something that people were like, well, it was because of this and because of that. And, there's an excuse, and they want to use blaming and excuses. You got to throw that away. Get that stuff out, because you know what? We are responsible for wherever we are in life. And once we make that decision that we're going to lead with the heart and the head, because you got to lead with both, in a way that's going to be a benefit to others, then that's how you really excel.
That is so powerful and courageous, how vulnerable you just were. And I know when I first met you, I got this same sense about you. You are so open and with your heart. And I feel like you are, that basically sums it up. So open. So it's interesting to hear you talk about the awareness that you have, that there was a time when you were not. Will you share with us, what, was there a specific moment that you recall that cracked you open to having a more open heart, or what led to becoming more open?
Oh yeah, there was. And it was Phoenix, Arizona at a Jack Canfield event. And Jack Canfield's group, where we were all together in the room, and he goes, okay, we're all going to get up and hug. And I'm like, oh no, not this guy. And so I'm the only one. There's like 300 people in the room, and I'm the one looking for the door. And I actually walked out of the door, and I'm out there by myself, and then it hit me. I'm like, I'm the only one out here.
Wow.
Why am I the only one that can't do what everyone else is doing in the other room? And so this woman came out and she goes, is it okay if I just stand next to you? She didn't want to hug me. She just said, can I stand next to you? And so she was just basically being in my space with me. The next day, a woman, as she saw me headed for the door again, because they did it again, she goes, would you mind, can I ask you a couple of questions in the hallway? And I said, that's fine. And she was a very refined woman. And we started walking down the hallway, and we get down about halfway down, and we turn left, and there's a door. And she opens the door. And inside the door, there's 2 chairs, a box of tissue, a little flower, and a table. And I realized, oh, you're not just somebody that's asking me a couple of questions. You're somebody that knows how to fix some of me.
Oh, wow.
So an hour and a half went by, and I cleared out some things that needed to be cleared out from my childhood and some things that had went wrong. And then she asked me at the end, she goes, can I have a hug? And that was the moment when I realized it's okay to have a regular hug with another person. And so now I can hug anybody.
Wow.
And it's just incredible how that breakthrough has changed so much in me, because I let somebody in my bubble, and then going and just, hugging strangers like in a room. That's just odd to begin with. But what I found was it got me connected with myself again. And that was so powerful. So that breakthrough, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget Dr. Deb, who and she teaches replacement image therapy, and she took a very traumatic event in my life and changed that with an image that now I can cope with. That wow. I don't have to see it the way I saw it before, and it was really powerful.
Oh my gosh, yes. So for anybody listening, if you have questions or if this is resonating with you in any way, please do feel free to type down below in the comments, because we would love to connect with you during this conversation as well. But so Mark, so that sounds like an incredibly pivotal moment for you.
It was.
And I'm just wondering, when we have an experience like that, of course, it's so pivotal that we remember it, obviously, but I find that sometimes there are these additional like residual moments where it's kind of like, mm-hmm. oh, I'm kind of falling back into that old pattern again, and no, I got to remember to open up or something along those lines. Did you have anything like that? Like, was it a process, or was it really like you did it in one full swoop and that was it?
I think it's not like it was a magic wand of healing, because I think, when we have trauma or drama in our lives, it's always going to be there. But I think now I realize the power of just, first of all, acknowledging something and seeing it from a distance. Say, okay, there it is. I know it was there. Or if it was something that happened in my life, okay, I got it. But I can look at it from a distance, and I can now change my reaction. And so, there's been that times it's like, wow, I really wish that would have happened to me in my life, right? Things that happened. But then I also go, wow, I get a chance now to choose my response on what happened, because it's in the past anyway. I don't have to drag it around bag and baggage. I can just say, that was really, that was a lesson I learned, and I can look at it from a different perspective. And I think it's grown to help me do that, to be able to look at it outside of it and say, okay, there it is. I can engage it and see it, but I don't have to feel it the way I felt it back then, or, when it was happening or whatever. And so that's really been, it's been really a moment where I can just like release and just say, okay, now I look at, my present, being in the present moment like we are right now,
right.
And then looking at what's forward. What am I going to do going forward? How am I going to react? Virtues, values, all the other things in life.
Well, it sounds like, first off, so to those who are with us live, we've got I'm noticing in our comments, we're getting the word interesting. Mm-hmm. So I love what you're sharing, Mark, and it sounds like it's resonating with our live viewers. So thank you for those who have commented. Interesting interview. That's what Jackie is saying. And we have Nikki who's saying very interesting. So Mark, what I'm hearing is that moment allowed you to become very mindful of that happened in your past, but where you are today, you are different today. You are in a different place today. And as you mentioned earlier, you can now choose to take responsibility of how you respond to that situation in the present.
Correct. And I mean, if it's serious trauma, it's not easy. You have to stop and say, okay, yep, that thought is coming in, and then I also say you can shift your thinking. If a negative thought comes in, I always say don't live in the negative moment too long. You can feel it. It's okay to feel it because your mind is taking you there. But you can say, okay, I have this little thing. It's called nope, not today, and it's on my desk. And I just decide how I'm going to control my thinking. It's like, okay, well, I see that my brain wants me to think about something that happened negatively in the past. Okay, fine. Then it's there for a second. I see it. I know it's there. But I don't have to continue living in it. I don't have to continue reliving things that are long gone or long past. It's better to take time to work on ourselves now because, life is short.
Right.
We decide how we're going to think. And, like a couple of years ago, I went into this journey of positive affirmations, positive thinking, shifting the negative thought. And that's why I call myself the mindset vet, because I really believe that I've rewired my own brain by doing all of that, by just living it all the time.
You know what, Mark? So I love this conversation because you're bringing in both the head and the heart, the thinking and the feeling. And for a man who has had your level of experience and your background, I really, really appreciate you being willing to talk about feeling your emotions. And it sounds like you've developed this awareness that it's not a weak thing. It's actually a critical piece to being able to move forward. I mean, your story about allowing yourself to have that conversation with that woman and how it was such a pivotal moment. It's here's how I've learned it is we can tell ourselves, okay, I'm not going to have that thought anymore. And yet if we never allow ourselves to have that breakthrough moment of feeling those emotions, then it's going to continue to just keep coming up and bubbling up to the surface until we release the actual emotion that's tied to it. So, oh my gosh,
it is true. It really is so true. I mean, reading positive affirmations and reading good books, like it's amazing how, I got mentored by the senior producer, Good Morning America, for a year. And before she worked for HarperCollins now. And she would send me these great books before they were ever on the shelf because, she would get the early read copies. Okay. And she was sending me some great books. And, I just know that, if you work hard, love yourself and love others, and just, get rid of a little bit of the ego. See, that's one of the things for, it's not like male, female, but here's the thing. Right. A lot of guys in the Army walk around with a lot of ego. It's just, sometimes it's a protection. It's like it's like an outward protection. It's kind of like guys in uniform or stuff like, look at me, I'm the guy in the uniform. But I think sometimes when you step back from that for a second and the ego, it's not like you can't be modest if you've done a lot of things, right? It's okay to be modest, but be a little more humble. And if you're a little more humble and you kind of learn to get rid of a little of the ego or even a lot of it. And when you do, then you really do connect with people because people don't like nobody likes the bouncer at the door. It's like, oh, he's going to throw me out of the bar, but people don't like that too much of that ego. It's not the way we should be, but it's the way a lot of people live their lives.
At what point did you realize that how your ego was showing up and influencing your relationships?
Probably because of the failed relationships. I was always right. I didn't realize that I was not always right. I wanted to be right all the time, and I wanted people just to follow everything that I said, and that was wrong. I had to fall on my own sword and say no. I've learned so much, and actually, it's funny because I've learned so much from women's groups, and I say that because I'm in one of the largest book clubs in the world. That's mostly a women's group. It's called the Pulpwood Queens, and it's a book club, and they're having their 20th year anniversary. I'm actually in their book that's getting ready to be published. And actually, she was friends with the guy who wrote the book, Pat Conroy, who wrote the book Prince of Tides. And so she is an amazing woman. And so I've been a part of that group for 3 years, and it's a book club. And then, of course, the Evolutionary Business Council, which is mostly women too. And I got around that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look! There was so much heart in that room. I had to run for the exit a couple times there too, because I was like, some of the stuff I was like, whoa, that's above my level. But I have opened up a lot, and I've learned so much from people who are heart centered, who share. Even for the summit that we're running, the Get Resilient Summit. All these great people, homeopathy and mindfulness and mindset and family and relationships and all these things that a lot of guys are just going to sit around and not talk about those things.
Right.
But for me, I've already did all the hard. I was an Army fighter. I already did all the hard stuff. I went to war. I did all the hard stuff. So really now I'm finding myself, and I like what I see because I opened up. And I'm not walking around with this 10-pound bag of ego anymore.
Okay, so you touched on something that I wanted to, next direction I want to move into is that getting to know yourself piece and your identity. And there was a specific question in there, and it kind of, it's just share with me what have you learned about yourself in this process?
Well, I learned that writing is healing. When I first wrote the book, Step Out, Step Up, Lessons from a Lifetime of Military Service and Transition, I reached out to people I hadn't talked to in 30 years because they were in the book, because they were instrumental to my life at some point. And so by doing that, I relived a lot of the things, and while I relived them, it helped me to set them aside.
Yes.
So it was very healing. So that was one thing I really learned is writing is a super healing agent to do that.
Sorry. So eager to ask you my next question. Yeah. So in addition to writing, did you ever used to journal before, or do you journal?
That's funny. My desk drawer right here has about 15 of them in there.
Okay.
So it was just something I always did. I would take one and I would journal, and then I would take the best of that one and flip it into the new one and rewrite it and just keep going. And I would find the quotes or my mission statement or, things I liked and things that my goals, and all of those things would just become part of it. And then, even my weaknesses and all of that, my SWOT analysis, my strengths, my weaknesses, my opportunities, my threats, all of that stuff would be written in there. And then I would write a new one. And I just kept doing that. So 14 or 15 years of journaling. Yes. So.
I love it. Okay. So we have a really wonderful question right now. Jackie is asking, how does one get to self-love? And I would love to get your thoughts on self-love and this journey you've been on, because it sounds like, you've had an awareness of your own self-love that's opened up for you.
I'm going to answer this like this. When I was in India not long ago, and this was a trip that I was not planning on. I got invited, and I was getting ready for the other large event, and I said, you know what, the timing is never right for something big, and something was pulling me to go. And when I went, when I realized that I was in this camp with this old woman who was poor, and as soon as I walked into the camp, she immediately magnetized to me. She would not leave my side the whole time we were walking through the camp. And I sat down with the people that were making the jewelry, and I watched them make it, and they took pictures of us while we were there because I wanted to make sure people saw that I was actually a part of what we're doing. But the woman looked me in the eye, and then she smiled. And as hard as it was for her, for what she's dealing with in her life, she smiled at me. And she knows that my life was not nearly as tough as hers. But then she put this necklace around me that, like, it was an incredible necklace. She puts this necklace around me, and then she smiled at me again. And then she went out, she put her hand out like this. And I realized that people look for love, but when you give it with the eyes, when you look somebody in the eye and you give yourself to them, it's the eyes are the window to the soul, is what I say. When you really give somebody your eyes, not in a sexual way, it's just in a personal way, and you're connecting, that is true self-love to me, because I'm sharing me with that person.
I see what you're saying.
So when you look directly into someone's eyes, and it was hard because we did that same thing at Jack Canfield once. We were like staring each other in the eye for like 3 minutes with no words. And I don't even do that hardly with my wife, you know. And you're doing this with complete strangers. It's like, oh my gosh, this person's looking into my soul. But you realize that they see the love in you without words.
So two things I want to say here. First off, because I saw some of those photos that you posted of your trip to India, and so I have a visual of what that woman's life looked like. But for those who haven't had a chance to see those photos, will you just kind of paint the picture? Because when you say what she was dealing with versus what you're dealing with,
Sure.
How would you describe what she was dealing with?
Well, first of all, she brought me over to her husband, who was sitting in a chair, and he had a stroke, and his arm was not working. And he was an older gentleman with he had the dreadlocks, and he was very probably 95 to 100 pounds. And she was just sharing she wanted me to meet him. She wanted me to be in front of him. She wanted to show me who she loved. And then as she went around the camp with us, and then we sat down with the younger generation of the people that are making the necklaces, I realized that woman is like an icon to me. She's really showing me that no matter where you are in life, you can still love. And she was showing me that person was so important to her. So we're always going to show we're going to always be able, if you can show someone else what's important to you really in your heart, that's when you really truly connect with people. It's not always easy, and especially after you've been hurt in life, you want to pull back and you don't want to put your heart out there again. That can be difficult too. But I think self-love is you got to love yourself. You got to love who you are, and wake up every morning and say, you know what, I am a good person. I am this, and I can do these things. And you have to you got to coach yourself a little bit, because it's just something you have to do. I say it's like motivation. Motivation is not given. It's like a shower. You got to do it every day. And so you got to self-love yourself every day. Get up and say, I love you. Look in the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself. How many people do that, right? I love you. Well, looking at yourself.
So what I'm hearing you say is that willingness to be open enough with yourself to allow the wall to unblock your heart.
Yes.
So that you can see love and then be able to connect to that love within someone else and allow them to be able to see you and know that you don't have to be closed off. That's what I'm hearing you say is in terms of self-love, is allowing yourself to break down that wall and be able to see and be seen in that in return.
Absolutely. And it's a vibration. You give off a vibration. And, even in this conversation, we're giving off a vibration to people. Right. And so when you give off that vibration and they feel it, they're like, oh, okay, I really do feel this person. I see that they are that person. They're not saying there's something else. They are that person. And when you see that, it's a good thing, because that's when you really do truly connect with people.
And what you brought in earlier about seeing yourself in the mirror, I mean, that can be really hard.
It is. It's like, it feels kind of weird the first time you're like, oh, I love you. You're saying it to yourself. But you know what? That's self-talk. You need to do that. You need to tell yourself you love yourself, because who's your best self? Yourself, right?
Right. We can be our worst enemy or our best friend. And it can be as simple as starting with that. And it's one of those things that sounds so simple and yet can be so challenging to just actually do that and say that in the mirror. But it's kind of like, getting the wheel greased up a little bit, because once you can start to do that for yourself, then when you actually do it and say it for someone else, then it actually has more momentum and means more. And
Sure.
yeah.
And the other thing is too is if you're not liking yourself right now, there might be some habits you need to change. If you have habits that are not working and they're not working, then change them. People, like if you're not feeling good about yourself because you're doing something you shouldn't, then don't do it anymore, and then forgive yourself and then go do the right thing.
So let's talk about that really quick. Like that little piece is huge, because I'm really big on not adding to our own self-shame. So if we know that we're in a space of of maybe needing to forgive ourselves for whatever it may be, maybe it's just simply being in a certain space that, gosh, I wish that I could change things quicker. Or maybe it's something that, like, forgiveness for something that was done to another person or something that happened in a relationship. Either way, like, awareness is the first piece. And so to just be able to have that awareness, like, applaud yourself, because that's huge. Yeah. That takes courage to even just have that awareness. But then secondly, then saying, okay, the next hurdle is to get over is to actually forgive myself so I can move beyond that. So was there ever a time in your life where you had to say, okay, I need to embrace forgiveness?
Oh yeah. And I'm glad you asked that, because it was also just recently that it happened. And it did happen in Chennai, India, because after seeing those people and being around that environment and seeing what we have, right? What we have in this country, I at the end of almost at the end of my trip, I sat up on this, there was a small stage at the hotel, and it was like outside where this beautiful statue was. And I sat down and I thought, if I harbor anger or hate for the rest of my life, it's like me drinking, against another person. It's like me drinking poison and then trying to make them be hurt. And so I had not forgiven my father for many, many years. And I'm sharing this with this group, but I forgave him. And it was not easy, because it was a very tragic thing that happened, and I wasn't happy with his result of what he did. Because I lost a brother, and then I had to be the one to go take care of the problem. And he was the father, not me. And I was not mature enough at that time in my life to be able to do that. And so I forgave him. I said, I don't know what was happening in his life at that time where he could or could not have been there, but I had to do it. And it made a mark on me that was really difficult for me to remove. And part of the breakthrough that we talked about was removing that. So yes, forgiveness is huge, because now I feel free, because I didn't have to call him up and forgive him, because I forgave within myself. And now you talk about self-love, that now I love myself more because I was able to forgive. But it was not easy. People think, oh, that's easy, you can just forgive people. It doesn't work that way. You have to really, really find something in your heart that says, it is time, I'm going to release that. I'm not going to carry that burden. I'm not going to carry that weight any longer.
I think that piece is huge, is being able to identify within yourself that you're ready to forgive. It's not something you can necessarily force. And I love that we're mentioning this. I'm just going to go ahead and share it out. I actually have a forgiveness process for anybody who's ready to take some time to, go ahead and release that, whatever that is for you. But will you share with us, when you got to that place just recently, what did that look like for you? For anybody who's thinking, okay, I'm ready to forgive, but what does that mean? How do I do that? What can you share with everyone?
It's funny, because I took my camera on my phone and I recorded myself. And at first I thought, well, I'm going to post this. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to post this. Right. Because I do post a lot of Facebook lives and the Facebook things, but this was more personal. For me. And, so there was heavy emotion, because I needed that to flow. I needed it to get out of my body. I needed to get away from my mind and say, okay, now I have fully forgiven. And I even mentioned that I would I would try to reach out and let him know that I've forgiven him, and which is a second step to forgiveness, in my opinion, because you're going out to the person that you felt had wronged you, and now you're forgiving them. You're expressing it, and that's a deeper step for me than the step that I've done for myself, so I can love myself for who I am, and not feel like I have to keep that inside anymore. So I think it is hard to do it, but I can tell you how much better I feel. It's incredible. I mean, I feel so much better, and you can never know when the right time is. I think your body and your mind just says, okay, when are you going to do this? When are you going to forgive this person for, because like I said, life is short.
Yeah.
Go live it with love and joy, and go surround yourself with good people, and surround yourself with good food, and surround yourself with good surroundings, and go do the things you want to do in life. Don't get stuck trying to live somebody else's life for them. If you're stuck in that, then make a change. I mean, people will live out their whole life stuck. It's like, why should you be stuck? You don't have to be, and sometimes that means we have to work on ourselves. And, I've had to do a lot of work on myself. But what's interesting is I've learned most of what I've done these last couple of years from others, because I get to ask the questions. I get to interview them. I get to be around them and find out about their lives and say, wow, that's interesting. How are you resilient? Because, my book, Warrior's Code, is the 7 vital steps of resiliency. So I help people understand, how do you be resilient, rest and remove problems and resolve issues. Resolving issues is forgiving. So that's 3 of the R's, but there's 7. So I have decided that it's okay to embody what I share. And by doing that, I am authentic. I am real. Right. I'm not I'm this over here and I'm this over here. Yeah. Do my family have problems? All the time. Do we have an argument in our home? Sure, we have an argument in our home. I've been married 25 years. But I realize that I have grown so much by just reaching out and learning about others, and learning about resilience, and learning solutions, and meditating, and using the positive mental attitude to the right mindfulness. And I say there's a willing yes. Be willing and say yes to change, because if you don't know something, it's okay. There's 3 causes for failure: don't know, can't comply, won't comply. And if you don't know, somebody will teach you. Somebody knows. Just like you said, you have a solution for forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
And so if we don't know how to forgive, then get a hold of Kim and show you.
Yes.
And then to connect. And, believe in people, but learn something you don't know.
So, okay, so many different thoughts. I love this conversation, Mark. So Jackie's commenting in the comments, and it looks like she's trying to say intense. Maybe that this is intense, or something along those lines. Jackie, feel free to add a little more if you'd like to elaborate on that. But Mark Green, I'm looking at the time, and I absolutely want to hear more about the resiliency and how you serve your clients, and this largest online resilience summit that you just hosted. So I know this was your first summit that you put together. It was really huge. There was a lot of work to it, and I know you had some help, but you did pretty much all of it on your own, I think, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of work, and 3.5 months went into that. We had 60 speakers from around the world, and we're looking for new speakers for the next summit, and anything in resilience, mindfulness, mindset, family, relationships. So yeah, we're starting the new one, and to me, it was a huge success, because I learn every time. I learn more things that fit in the resilience world. And if people want to register, if you don't mind, I'll share the website where they can go.
Please do. Yes, where can they go?
Yeah, so they can go to getresilientsummit.com.
Okay.
And then it's going to show the zeros, because we just finished the other one. But when they register, if their email is not in there already, they can go ahead and register. And the next one will be running in a couple of weeks.
Got it. Okay. And so I am grateful. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of that summit. I did get to have an interview with you and be part of it. So thank you for that. I would love to know, what was your experience as this person who's so newly out of a lifelong career in the military and moving in this direction of personal development and throwing a huge, massive summit? Oh my goodness, that's huge.
Well, I think the great thing is that, when I had the job as an inspector general, my job was to problem solve. My job was to say, okay, what is the problem? Here's who we connect with to get the solution or to make a recommendation. And I think I feel like I'm still in that same space, because for people that are looking for new things to overcome things in life, the resilience platform that I have pretty much fits over the top of any story. And so if anybody has a story, they just say, okay, well, one of the things you need to rest more. Okay. Because if we're stressed out and we're tired, we're cranky and we're not doing well because, we're biting at people and stuff. And so when I share those steps, they matter because, you need to reconnect. That's one of them. Reconnect with yourself, reconnect with others. So all of that stuff I learned in uniform. I learned all of that from dealing with problems. And so I thought, well, if I leave the service, I can just be of service to others doing the same thing in a different way. And that's what happened. And so it's not really hard for me because not only do I get to share my one tool, but now I get to share tools from all across the world tied to the same theme, which I love.
Now, did you have any hesitancy about sharing these tools in the way that you are today in terms of, talking about forgiveness and feelings based on your background? I mean, were you concerned that others, your previous coworkers might perceive it differently?
No, what's interesting is that the Army, the guys that have transitioned out of the Army, we had 16 veterans in the summit. Those guys are like, Mark, you rock. And I'm like, no, it's not me, it's you guys. But what's really cool is they connect with me more because they realize that I'm doing it that way. And so by letting the guard down, you actually are lifting people up.
Oh, wow.
And so it's incredible how that, there might be somebody out there's like, oh, that's hoo-ha or whatever. That's fine. If we never have a hater in our world, in the social media world, then you probably have not been in the social world. You're going to have that at times. Somebody's not going to agree, or they're going to have a difference of opinion, which is fine. There's words that I say to that, and here they are. I appreciate your concern. Thank you for your comment. I mean, what else can they say when you say that? You don't have to entertain somebody that's trying to bring you negative energy in life. And so I just choose not to. And so I will never respond to anything like that. If I see it, I'll just block it or I'll move on, because my life is too short. I want to live a life full of joy, and I want to help others, and I want to be that messenger of hope for others. And that's the direction. Now that I'm a world civility ambassador, for crying out loud, I had no idea that was going to happen. But, the guy put me in front of one of the top 5 ministry leaders of India, and I gave him flowers and shook his hand. That doesn't happen unless you have built yourself to that point where all of a sudden the universe is opening up doors that you had no idea would open. And so it's not that I'm sharing that to say, wow, look at me. I'm sharing it because it happened. And it happened because everything that I've done up to now has brought me to that point, with opening up, self-love, self-help, learning and growing and not giving up and taking risks and, helping others and doing all of what I've done. That led me to that person that helped me get there.
Well, so thank you for sharing about how letting that wall down, about not having that wall, how not having that resistance to potential haters, how really, so again, what I hear is it allows you to stay in alignment with who you are and what your mission is. And so all that action that you've also taken is allowing you to continue to build momentum without that potential wall in the way.
Correct.
And look what's shown up for you since then. So I just love it, because alignment is a huge thing that's been coming up more and more for me lately. So if it's resonating with anyone out there too, then your story and everything you shared with us today is just a beautiful testament to being in alignment with yourself and supporting yourself in that by allowing yourself to have these pivotal moments where you crack open and release what's not serving you and moving in the direction that you feel called to go. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, Mark. So I'll just go ahead and acknowledge. Thank you, Jackie, for adding to just elaborating on what you were talking about. She was talking about making amends and asking for forgiveness. Yes, wonderful. And I love how Mark was sharing that made a difference for him. It sounds like you forgave yourself, but also put yourself out there to extend forgiveness to someone else.
Yeah.
So wonderful. So if you're just tuning in, then do go ahead and watch the beginning of this so you can hear more about what he was sharing about that forgiveness piece. But Mark, as we near the end of this, and it's gone by so quickly because I really just loved everything you shared.
I feel like it's only been like 5 minutes, but maybe
I know. I agree. Are there any additional or any parting words that you would like to leave with our audience today, if they're just in that space of realizing it's time for them to crack open or ask for forgiveness or have more alignment, any of those pieces? Anything you'd like to share before we go?
I would just say, we get a choice every day to think positively or negatively about ourselves or others. We get a choice every day to love or not. We get a choice every day to get outside and look at nature and look at what is around us that's so beautiful in life. We choose those choices every day. So, I love the name of your podcast, because, it's so true that it's every day. Every day we get that choice to do or to be or to become what we want in life. And sometimes that means it's like I said, it's hard choices of, I have to work on me. I have to do something for me, not for that other person. And sometimes we'll get trapped in that, where that other person is not seeing things the same way, or we learn so much, there's a gap between our knowledge base and theirs. And so there's that, what do you do with that? And so what I say is pull that person up, teach them what you're trying to share in a loving way, but not like in an overbearing way, but help them to see who you really are. If you love yourself, it will show on the other end.
Yeah. I like how you bring that in. You're again, I hear the two pieces. It's the piece about you're remembering every day. You talked about the 5 different things you do every morning to give yourself that love and be in that alignment with yourself. And then you're opening it up and extending it out to someone else. But it's like you don't really have anything to give if you're not even doing it for yourself first.
That's right. That's so true. Very true.
Oh, thank you so much. I just love everything about you, Mark. You're awesome. So where can people find out more about you, and if they want to work with you and gain more resilience or anything?
Sure.
Yeah.
So you can find me very easily on the web at www.mark.green.
I love it.
And then both of my books are on Amazon. If you look up author Mark Green, or you look up Step Out, Step Up, which is my memoir about growing up in Missouri and, the hard life. And then it was doubtful, and then now some success. And then the second book is Warriors Code 001, which is the 7 vital steps to resiliency. And then I am in an international best-selling book. I think it's called I Am Still Here, with Brian Smith, who did it, who blurbed the book, and I think he's a billionaire from the EBC. I have another book coming out called The Money Tree, that I actually had a meditation, because I was always giving but not receiving. And I had a meditation. I was like, why am I not receiving? And so this little man meets me in a tree, and he puts my entrepreneurial products into the DNA of the tree. And this magical tree then releases the money only for me because I'm the entrepreneur that created it. And so that's coming out. I have an artist from Missouri or from Florida here that has art in the governor's mansion that's actually doing the cover. And that's a Forbes book that's going to be coming out. So
Mark, I want to hear more about that. Keep me in the loop about that.
Little man in the tree. He opens up the door and says, "Oh, I was expecting you." So,
oh my goodness, that's an exciting one for yeah.
Well, because like sometimes we're blocked, we're stuck, like we're always giving and not receiving, and it's okay to give and receive. And people are like, "Oh, well, you mean you're asking me to buy your book?" Well, yes, I am asking you to buy a book because if you read about me, you're like, "Wow, Mark was really saying all that stuff was all true." Okay, get it. And so it's okay to ask people for things. It's like, well, look, if somebody goes down and buys a pizza, they get the pizza and then they're done. But if you read a book, you learn more about yourself and others. And when you can connect, it's a good thing. So that's the best way to reach me is the Mark.Green, or pick up my books on Amazon.
Well, all your books sound awesome, and goodness, for the overgivers, Mark's newest book, that's resonating big time. So it's awesome. Okay.
Oh, one last thing, if you don't mind.
Yes.
On August 10th, this is my second annual. It's called The Taste of Freedom and To Freedom. We do have a donation site set up for the For Honor Golf and Event Center in Missouri. And there was $50,000 worth of damage to the greens. And the veterans play golf there, so we're trying to get money for the golf course to fix the greens to help the owner of the golf course.
Okay.
And then we have a balloon glow that night, and it's in Missouri. So if you're not in Missouri, you probably are not going to travel all the way there. But we are looking for donations. I'll put something on the Facebook.
Sure. Yeah.
Friend me, but you don't have to give a lot but it would really be nice if we could get some extra donations for the event, because it's called Taste of Freedom and To Freedom and the Glow to Freedom, because we're doing balloon glow that night.
And who does it serve again? Who does it serve?
It serves a 501c3 called For Honor Foundation.
Okay.
She's the owner of the golf course. It's the only military themed golf course in the country right now.
There we go. Okay. So. Awesome. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, definitely that sounds like something to take note of. If you live in Missouri, for sure, check that out. And yes, please put that link down below. And again, if you want to connect with Mark Green, simply go to www.mark.green, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, wonderful. Mark, thank you so much for being here today and being so open to just share all the different things that came up. I absolutely love it. And this is just a wonderful interview with you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kim.
Absolutely. And for all those who watched, please do go ahead and still share in the comments what you are taking away from this interview. And if you have additional questions, we would still love to connect with you even after the interview. After today in the live version, you can also hear the show over on YouTube and iTunes. You can hear previous episodes of the Every Day is a New Day show. And I just want to remind you that every day truly is a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I love what Mark was sharing, how at the beginning of every day, he has 5 things that he does to align himself with his purpose, with who he is, with his, with what he's here to do. And he was talking earlier also about it's something that you do every day. It's not like you do it once and then that's it, right? It's a continual process of giving to yourself and taking that time, because when you do that, then you actually can give to others. So beautiful stories that he shared. With that said, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And thank you for those of us who are with us live saying, great show, wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. Have a fantastic rest of your day. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's today's show. So, what are you taking away? Let me know down in the comments wherever you listened or watched today's episode, and connect with me on Facebook on the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page, or visit KimO'NeillCoaching.com for more info. Remember, every day is always a new day. Wherever you are today does not have to be where you are tomorrow. There is always hope, and you will always be amazing. I'll see you next time.